Folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In this video, I want to talk to you about a concept known as bilateral asymmetry. Now, we're talking about strength asymmetry. So, this idea that one side of the body, right, your arms, right, your legs, whatever the case is, one side is stronger than the other. Now, again, this is within the context of resistance training, and I get the question fairly often, and that's what I'm really answering a question for a student who had asked me, is it really that big of a problem? Now, again, the idea of this bilateral asymmetry being stronger on one side or the other is it's normal. It's actually not abnormal. In fact, that's what we kind of expect. And so it's not a question of is it a problem that it exists, that people can lift heavier weights or even more repetitions on one arm than the other, one leg than the other. The question is it a problem? And the quick answer to that is no, generally it's not. Now, let me back up again because there's always a context to the answer to any questions related to biomechanics and kinesiology and just physiology in general. So here's the context. Are we talking about the average client, 99.99% of all the people that trainers deal with, or are we dealing with athletes? And this is generally where we have to just go ahead and make the separation. So first and foremost, if you're dealing with athletes, and they are unilateral based athletes, a javelin, people that do individuals that do track and field, like the javelin, shot put, right? Even the hammer throw, anything that requires unilateral movement patterns, right, over the course of their training time and their season, their training season and their competitive season. Now, for instance, as opposed to a runner, a sprinter, just as a for instance, right, a sprinter is a quote bilateral athlete, I guess if you want to call it like that. I don't know if I've ever heard it said like that, but right, unilateral based athletes, right, one side of the body. So somebody that throws a javelin, somebody that does the discus, they're always going to do it with the same arm. So they're always unilateral in their biomechanics, right? Generally, I don't think I've ever seen high level athletes or any athlete really that does the discus or the javelin or whatever the field event is, do it and then switch to the other side, right? What they call ambidextrous. So never seen that. So if it's an athlete, then yeah, asymmetry, strength asymmetries are not only normal, they are expected. So if you're training an athlete who's able to do dumbbell curls and they can just continue on with the left hand or the right arm and they're a right, they throw the discus, well, you would assume that they have, increased endurance, muscle endurance or strength on one side of the body. That's not the issue. The issue is what happens to the body once they're done with their competitive season. Now, this is going to require a little bit more thought. And that's why we have brilliant guys, ladies doing athletic training and helping on the athletic front, where your goal in the off season, in one sense, is to minimize or at least bring the strength comparison levels as close to even as you can, knowing full well that when they start training for their season, they're going to, screw things up again, and become very unilaterally strong. And this creates discrepancies, right, in the musculoskeletal system that can cause injuries. Okay, let's put that aside, right? So in that case, yeah, there's good and bad. I mean, I do need to be stronger on my left arm throwing the javelin than my right arm, and that's neuromuscular as well. You're generally not dealing with those type of individuals, and if you are, then you use the information like I just gave you. But the average person, bilateral asymmetry, again, it's normal, right? The average person is generally not only from a musculoskeletal standpoint going to be stronger on one side or have more endurance on one limb or one side of the body than the other. It's expected, but there's a neuromuscular component to this as well. If you're a lefty or a righty and you try to write, right? So we know that there are these asymmetries. That's natural. It's normal. The question, of course, that that I was asked, and I'm asked often, is it a problem? And the answer is no. Okay, that's the short answer. Should you work diligently to even out those strength differences? And the answer is no, not really. If a person can do 3 extra reps on one arm than the other, it's irrelevant. It has really no meaning. It doesn't really matter. However, if you are well, this goes back to athletics, but if you're doing arm wrestling, you should have a significantly higher muscular strength capacity, endurance capacity on one arm than the other. But again, the average person being able to do a couple of extra reps on one arm or the other, that's not a problem. But here's your sort of solution to that is don't do those extra reps. If a person can fatigues out on their left arm with dumbbell curls, but they can continue doing it, well, don't do the extra reps. You do as many reps as the weaker or less, the weaker arm or the one that has less endurance. So you're dealing with, right, the lesser of the strength sides of strength, and you're going to go with the one that's weaker or stop. If the right arm can do 3 extra reps, don't do it. It got a decent workout by doing the reps you did with it. And I'm just showing you dumbbell curls. It could be any exercise. Okay, so that's one way to sort of ensure that you don't overemphasize one or the other. If one arm is stronger than the other, don't worry about it. Okay, you stop when the weaker arm stops if you're doing a bilateral movement like dumbbells. One of the reasons why it's always a good idea to do lots of different exercises, but get your single movements like shoulder presses, bench presses, use a bar or a machine whenever you can, because that will ensure that irrespective of which side of the body is weaker from a musculoskeletal, neuromuscular perspective, is if you're using a machine and you can't push, but you know that left arm can push harder, stronger for more reps, it doesn't matter, because if the right arm is weak and it stops, boom, you're done. It's self-protective in that way. So is it an issue? No, not really. I mean, for some folks, there might be a pretty glaring discrepancy, but if that's the case, you're training through bilateral movements, right? And with bars and dumbbells as well. Just make sure that you keep both sides, right, for the most part, at the same resistance. In other words, if you're doing dumbbell rows and you're a lefty and you could use a 90-pound dumbbell, but you can only use an 80-pound dumbbell on the right side, well, don't use a 90 on one side and 80 on the other. It just makes sense. Don't accentuate that strength imbalance or that strength difference. If the weaker arm can only use an 80-pound dumbbell, then use the 8-pound dumbbell on the stronger arm and keep the repetitions the same. You're not holding back the stronger side of the body, nor would it make sense, because you are just, again, going to accentuate these strength imbalances. So the quick, down and dirty, easy answer to this is whatever the weaker muscle or side of the body, whatever the weaker side is, that's what you do with the other side. Okay, you'll find that after a while, that weaker side will probably get stronger, increase its endurance from the resistance training perspective. It's really that simple. Don't make too much of a deal out of it. It's really not that important unless there is some really true pathological issue going on from a neuromuscular or muscular skeletal perspective. I hope this is helpful. If it is, just let us know by typing the word understand in the comment section below. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Like it if you thought it was good, and then share it if you think it's helpful to other folks. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.